Hey Internet, my name is Julian and I'm back with another movie review. This week's big movie was Ghost in the Shell, which is based off the original anime manga of the same name from creator Masamune Shirow. Now I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I like anime. I like a lot of the different shows that are out there and movies. I just never got into Ghost in the Shell yet. Not that I didn't want to. It's just it hasn't been my top priority for anime, and it probably should be because from going on this movie, the movie's actually a pretty decent story. So I'd love to see what the original content is all about. Now that being said, let's go right into formalities with this movie, and then I'll give you my opinion about it. So the movie is directed by Rupert Sanders and produced by Avi Arad. It's starring Scarlett Johansson, Michael Pitt, Pilu Asbeek, Chin Han, Juliette Binoche, and it's got a runtime of 107 minutes with a PG-13 rating for sci-fi violence, suggestive content, and some disturbing images. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, I'll give you my opinion on the movie. I'll start off with the story. The story is actually pretty good. It's pretty interesting to see a world that has been, I'll call it, plagued by cybernetic enhancements for humans and also robots and, well, not really robots, but androids more. And also to the fact that they can now transplant a human brain into a robotic shell, hence where you get the title of the movie and probably the original story, Ghost in the Shell, as her spirit or mind is the ghost in the robotic shell. So everything kind of made sense in that aspect. The story was about Major, whose kind of memories have been erased, and she is part of Sector 9, who I guess is the defense agency for that area, and things are starting to go pretty bad for Hanaka Industries, I believe it is, who is actually the creator of her and most of the androids and things going on in this world. And people start dying off there, and it turns out it's this other being like her. And the story kind of unfolds from there, and then moves on, and I'm not going to try and spoil it too much. So the story itself's really cool. I like it. I'm down with it. I don't know how far off it is from the original storyline, but I can work with it. I think it's a pretty cool idea and aspect to go on, and a pretty good story. There are some dialogues and lines that were subpar that I thought could have been better, but that's really on the screenwriter and the director and everything from that. You can't really blame the actresses and actors for that because they're just reading what they've been given. Now, speaking of actors and actresses, there's been a big controversy with Scarlett Johansson and quote-unquote whitewashing from Hollywood because of her. But from what I've been reading and a lot of the images I've seen from the original content, she's kind of a spot-on look to it. Not saying that maybe the character was originally meant to be Japanese, but from what I've been reading, there have been quotes saying that the original creator made her look more European to differentiate, and that's exactly what she looks like. So I thought it was a good look. Hate me if you want, but that's just my opinion on it. Now the visuals and graphics and the environment were, I think, probably the best part of this movie. From the fight scenes to the cloaking ability to the world that they generated is just amazing. You have this futuristic, I guess you can call it Japan-like city, and it's got 100-foot holographic advertisements everywhere. There's even advertisements floating on top of cars. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Now that one thing I did notice, and this is probably just from the time frame that the original content was created, but cars still had wheels, and it didn't bother me as much it did bother me, but not as much as it would ruin the movie for me. But I figured if you're in a future like this, you would probably have floating cars or flying cars at that point, but whatever, not going to fault it. The music was also on point. It was very like subtle techno kind of beats behind it, and it made it feel futuristic and made it feel one with the world, which is pretty cool. My other favorite part of the movie was Chief Aramaki, who I thought was probably the best character in the movie. He is essentially the chief of the Sector 9 that Major works for, and he becomes like a badass at the end. Not that he probably isn't a badass throughout the whole movie, but he kind of just sits back and tells the crew what to do, and then eventually when things start going really south, he takes up arms and becomes like this huge badass, which I thought was pretty cool. My favorite part of the movie was you'll see it. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's pretty awesome. Other than that, I have really no faults with this movie. It's fun. It's entertaining. It's got a good story. The graphics are beautiful. The soundtrack is beautiful. And it leaves it off on a strong note that there could be sequels. Now, I know there's sequels in the original anime. There's more stories that can go from here. So I'm excited to see this movie do well, so that way we can get a sequel, because I think it deserves it. I'd love to hear what your opinions on the movie are, if you've seen it, or even if you haven't seen it. Just go ahead and leave them in the comments below, and I'll try and get back to them. But yeah, that's it for me here. Check me out next week. I'm sure there will be a movie or two that are out, and I'll definitely review them. See you later, Internet.